Shockingly, looking at this, the metropolitan area is really in big trouble. In Seoul and many areas of Gyeonggi-do, there have already been numerous instances where actual transactions show that declines have begun. In the future, the extent of the worsening sales and rental situation in Seoul is being felt the most by the local real estate agents. A full-scale decline is beginning. Hello, this is Kim Ki-hyun from Richgo. November has finally begun. The weather is changing very rapidly, so it would be great if you could dress warmly and be careful not to catch a cold. What I have talked about today is the real estate market, which is now more important than anyone else. There are people who are accurately forecasting the real estate market. This is precisely what we call collective intelligence, specifically the collective intelligence of real estate agents. KB has created and published statistics very well, and what that is the sales and rental price forecast index. So, by looking at this, we can know whether real estate prices will rise or fall in the future. It includes not only sales prices, but also rental prices. This data is released monthly, and the data for October was just freshly published in early November, so I would like to discuss this data today. Shockingly, looking at this, the situation in the metropolitan area is really serious. The decline in the metropolitan real estate market is expected to be significant, as our collective intelligence from real estate agents has gathered this data. This data is a short-term forecast, predicting whether the real estate market will improve or not in the next 3 months. I review a lot of data, and it is truly accurate, so I will explain this further. And first, here is the flower chart of the forecast index. So, 100 is the baseline. If it is to the right of 100, it indicates that sales prices are rising. If it moves to the left of 100, it means that sales prices are starting to decline. If it falls below, it indicates that rental prices are starting to decline. If it goes up from here, it means that rental prices are rising. So, the sales and rental supply and demand are quite similar. However, that data shows the current supply and demand, while this data shows what the real estate in that area will be like in 3 months. As you can see here, everything is either to the left or falling down. What does it mean when it falls to the left? Like in Ulsan, Gyeonggi, Incheon, or Seoul? It means that the sales price outlook is not good. It is getting worse. Among them, what about Gyeonggi province? It has moved rise to the left of 100. This means that sales prices in Gyeonggi province will fall. In the case of Seoul, this is Seoul, and it has also come close to 100. What does this mean? It means that Seoul is also facing a decline now. If you look at Incheon, everything is moving to the left as well. So, what is the problem? It's not just moving to the left, it is also falling downwards. What does it mean to fall down? This means that a decline in rental prices is expected. Fortunately, the price outlook index for Incheon, Gyeonggi, and Seoul is still above 100. So, rental prices are rising, but the rate of increase in rental prices is decreasing and heading in a negative direction. And if we look at the actual transaction price index data from Richgo, there are already many areas in Seoul and a considerable number of regions in Gyeonggi-do where declines have begun based on actual transactions. I will show this, and for now, the best place is Ulsan, but even Ulsan has slightly moved downwards, meaning the sales and rental situation has worsened. Compared to May, our real estate agents feel that things have worsened by October, and now look at the extent of the decline moving to the left. Which area has the largest decline? It's Seoul. There is no area as large as Seoul. In other words, the extent of the worsening sales and rental situation in Seoul is what real estate agents on the ground are feeling the most right now. The same goes for Incheon. The same goes for Gyeonggi-do. Jeonbuk is also moving downwards to the left, right, and Gyeongnam is currently moving downwards to the left as well. So all the areas on this left side are experiencing declines. So, what about the areas like Jeonnam, Daegu, Gyeongbuk, and Jeju in this 100-100 area? The trends for sales and rentals are all declining. However, Jeju has still moved quite a bit to the right. It's not great, but it is moving in a somewhat positive direction. So, regions like Jeonnam, Gwangju, Gyeongbuk, and Gyeongnam are all currently in a bad situation. The only areas that were somewhat good are Ulsan, Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, and Incheon, but even these metropolitan areas are rapidly worsening. Let's take a look at these regions one by one. Let's click on Seoul, and then we can see the data for Seoul. The red represents sales, and the blue represents rentals. Sales have now almost reached 100, rentals are slightly above 100, so this figure for October 2024 is almost the same as it's very similar to October 2023. So what does this mean? It means that prices are now clearly going to decline. And regarding how accurate this data is, look at the sales. In December 2022, it hit the bottom and is now rising. And starting from January, it actually began to rise from January 2023. Recently, it also hit the bottom in December 2023. So it hit the bottom and started to rise from January. And in fact, the sales prices improved from January as well. So when did it peak? It peaked in July. So in August, September, and October, the trend is reversing. And if it drops to 100, a significant decline will begin. So it will likely fall until December, and it started to rise from January, right? So what will happen in January next year could be crucial. And what about January next year? What will the government say in January next year? Yes, they will release another 55 weeks. So I think it could rise again in January. It could rise until around January or February. But what is the problem? In July 2025, the stress DSR is currently scheduled for the third phase. That's why I mentioned it. The first half of 2025 will be similar to the first half of 2022. There will be some areas that decline and some that rise, but transactions will be very stagnant. And in the second half of 2025, there is a high possibility of a significant decline. If you look here, this is when I mentioned in October 2021 that it might be a once-in-a-decade selling opportunity. Do you remember? That was this time, and if you look at it, it also fell. It dropped until around December and February, then had a brief rebound in March and April, but from May, it started to worsen again, leading to a significant drop in June and July. So this time, I see a high possibility of a similar pattern in Seoul, where it might drop, have a slight rebound early next year, and then collapse dramatically from mid next year. Currently, what is the problem? Supply is short, but what is happening? Rental supply is also down. Sales and rental prices fell then. Do you remember that the decline in rental prices was greater than the decline in sales prices? So, there has been a lack of move-in supply, but starting from the fourth quarter of this year, especially from November, the move-in supply is expected to increase significantly. Therefore, it is likely that rental prices will not be very favorable for a while. We need to consider whether the reverse rental situation will worsen or not, and whether the rental outlook will fluctuate below 100, like in the second half of 2022. We should assess this while observing various loan policies and the economic situation in the second half of 2025. So, it is already worsening. Let's look at Gyeonggi province. How is it there? It was improving, but now it is worsening again. So, Gyeonggi province is also expected to start a downward trend. In sales, how about Incheon? Incheon is also worsening now. Incheon is also worsening. However, among the metropolitan areas, Incheon is still in the best condition. Next, what about Ulsan, which I previously spoke very positively about? As you can see, it hit the bottom in December 2023 and continued to rise, but it peaked in August. Now, for 2 consecutive months in September and October, it has been declining and rental prices are also decreasing. So, while I view Ulsan as a very promising area, it seems that the recent short-term upward trend is coming to an end at this point, and there may be some stagnation. However, from a medium to long-term perspective, Ulsan is undoubtedly one of the areas that holds significant potential. And in the case of Jeonbuk, you can see that there was a slight rebound, but it is now turning down again. Both sales and rental prices are declining. In the case of Daejeon, it seems that rental prices will rise. Daejeon is expected to see an increase in rentals, but sales are likely to decline again. This is how real estate agents are viewing the situation. As for Chungnam, I consider it one of the promising areas for the future. Rental prices are stabilizing and then improving, while sales are showing a slight decline. It seems that Cheongnam will also need some time before it can start rising significantly. In the case of Gangwon-do, both sales and rentals have increased, and both the red for sales and the blue for rentals are showing a positive trend. So I expect that Gangwon-do will show a decent trend for about the next 2 to 3 months. In the case of Chungbuk, there has been a slight improvement, but it seems there is almost no change in the overall trend. As for Sejong, sales peaked in September and the outlook for sales has started to decline again from October. Fortunately, rental prices are gradually improving. Due to the lack of supply in Sejong, the rental outlook seems to be getting a bit better. However, the sales outlook in Sejong is also declining again. This is because this data is extremely important, especially for those who are looking to make short-term purchases. Therefore, I will make sure to mention this once a month. While watching this broadcast, it would be good to refer to the short-term outlook when you are planning to purchase a home or rent anywhere in the country. In the case of Busan, it has improved slightly compared to last month, but at this level, there is almost no change in the trend. However, the direction is still not bad. In the case of Gyeongnam, it has also declined significantly. Gyeongnam peaked in September and sales peaked in August, and both are declining. Therefore, in the case of Gyeongnam, it is highly likely that a slightly unfavorable trend will unfold in the short term. In the case of Gyeongbuk, sales are strong, but the rental market is declining again. Therefore, it seems that the rental market in Gyeongbuk is quite unfavorable. And if you look at Jeju Island, which has moved the most to the right, it has now risen to 99.2. March 2024 was the short-term bottom, and the previous peak was in January 2023. But among the recent years, it is the best in the last 2 years. So, the apartment sales market in Jeju is somewhat gaining strength and moving in a positive direction. The rental market is also rising. So, the trend in Jeju is not yet fully developed because it hasn't surpassed 100 in either market. Therefore, while it's improving, it's not hot yet. Nonetheless, the worst situation is being avoided, and it's gradually moving in a better direction, especially in terms of sales. Since it's almost reached 100, if it rises a bit more from here, we might see a short-term increase and a rising trend. How about Daegu? In Daegu, sales are declining again, while rentals are slightly rebounding. So, in Daegu, the sales market rebounded after hitting the bottom in December last year and has been rising since January this year. The real estate agents believe that the short-term rebound in Daegu may be coming to an end. In the case of Jeonnam, it was rising a bit, but both the sales and rental markets are expected to decline starting in October according to real estate agents. In Gwangju, the rental market is still gradually rising, but sales peaked in September and are now declining. Overall, the market trend is moving more towards the negative side rather than the positive, especially in certain areas where it is serious. Especially, Seoul is currently the most serious. Following that, Gyeonggi and Incheon are also showing significant negative trends compared to other regions, which we can clearly see through the data. If you found today's content helpful, I would greatly appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, set the alarm, and leave a comment. Thank you.